start the recording first of all, just to make sure we have that ready to rock and roll. And we shall begin. Right, I think I've closed down everything that is extraneous. Right, here we go. Brilliant. Okay, I can see the room filling up now. Hi, Cecilia. Oh, hello from Canada. That is wonderful. But the top of my head is cut off. I could do that, I suppose, Andrew, couldn't I? There we go. There we go. Hi, Daniela, you made it. That is absolutely fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. Right, first things first, if you haven't got any water handy, got my lipstick off my teeth. If you haven't got any water handy, you might want to go and grab some water. That would be fantastic. Brill. And I'm just looking at the room. So we are brilliant. Okay, fab. Right, so I can see that people have found their way in. All right, that's good. So I think we're going to get started. Just one more little thing I'm going to do here. Right, let's rock and roll. First of all, thank you for coming, for signing up, for joining us today. For what is going to be a slightly different webinar in terms of how we open, because I know I've got people who have signed up whose names I actually don't recognize. And that's quite unusual for my webinars, because I normally pretty much know everyone, or, you know, we're connected on social media, but I know there are new people here. So we're going to be, actually, let me just put that poll in. So I've just put a poll in, which hopefully you can see, and I just want to know very quickly how many of you know. Oh, good, you found it. I can see the numbers changing. It's toing and throwing. So I can see we've got some people who don't know about Huna, so that's fine. So that then gives me a sense of where we're going to be going with this. But in terms of our session overview, we're going to start with what I call the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about the importance of looking back, because one of the things that people often say is, oh my goodness, mentioning that again, racism, slavery, why don't you just stop talking about it? You got a chip on your folder, why not look forwards? And so we're going to talk a bit about that and the importance of looking back and working with the ancestors. For those of you who are new to this, who I don't know, I will just give you a very quick overview of who I am and what I do. I'm also going to give you an introduction to Hawaiian Huna for those who don't know, and talk about some of the clearing modalities that we're going to do. And then we're going to close with a trauma release session. And I have put into the presentation the results of the survey that I'd sent out. So those are already in there. And also what I'm going to be saying to you is, while we are talking and going through this webinar, if anything else comes to mind, then you're going to be holding the intention of bringing that up for resolution if it's time, so that you can clear that as well. So that's going to be an important piece. Now, some of you have found it. Those of you who are my regulars, if you have questions, if you have comments, you've got two options. You can, and this is, so if you look at the screen that I've got here, along the top, you've got the chat and you've got the Q&A. The chat is completely open, so everyone can see what you're saying, what you're commenting on. The Q&A is private, and that comes just to me, and I've just said that out loud. I'm just going to make sure, yes, it is set to private, so that's private, it comes just to me. So if there's a comment that you want to say, and if you do put a comment in, I'm not going to say Mr. X said, I'll just read out your comment rather than saying your name. Hey, Natalie. Hey, oh, hey, Nori. Long time no see. Well, you know what I mean. Hi, Veda. Wonderful. Oh, Andrew, you're in Canada too. That is very true. So that's how you submit your questions and comments, if there's anything you want to share while we're going through. I would also say, just have a think about your intention for today. What's your intention for signing up today, and how will you know that you've achieved it? Because I know from the survey, some people saying they want some tools and techniques and things that they can use. Others were saying it's about really clearing the energy of this. Others were, you know, going to be interesting to have a discussion about it. So really just start thinking about your intention, why you're here. And for those of you who are my photo readers, you will know that wakes up the RAS, the reticular activating system, which is a part of your brain that when you tell it what you're looking for, as all of the information is coming at you, you will then be able to kind of sift and sort for the information that's most relevant to you. So have a little think about that. And if there's anything you want to share with regards to that, you can put it into the chat or into the Q&A. In terms of getting what I'd call maximum results from today, give yourself permission to just kind of explore, particularly for those of you who have never used Huna before. This is going to be maybe a little bit out there, depending on your background. Set your purpose and intention so you have a sense of clarity about what you would like to take away. definitely keeping an open mind. And for this one, listening ideally without judgment, which can be challenging with questions of race and racism, etc. I would encourage you to share and interact as you already are. Hi, Geeta. And also go with the flow, particularly when we come to the energy clearing work. So this is going to have some of my usual magical components, not as much, because some of this is about dialogue and kind of talking through some of the issues, but we're certainly going to be doing, drawing on the archives, going to be doing some things to kind of activate your brain, get you thinking. With the guided process piece, that's going to be sort of more experiential, and then closing with some practical things that you can do in terms of pulling it all together, and of course encouraging you to think about your own next steps. So one thing I want to say is just let's be clear. When I put up the slide later about the things that were submitted in the survey, it's kind of heavy stuff. But I just want to say the same thing that I always say to my breakthrough coaching clients. There is nothing wrong with feeling the thing that we'd call negative emotion. So in this case, the sense of anger, rage, frustration, hurt, insert into that whichever is up for you, about this situations and the millions of other things that are going on in the world. We're right in the middle of a pandemic if you're watching this in real time. What I always say, it's not about, oh my God, I shouldn't be feeling these things, because you're human. We have been gifted a vast array of emotions. I would say it's more about what do those feelings do to you? And that's the thing I'm most concerned about. That's the thing I'm focusing on, because if you're fine holding those emotions and just sitting with them, no problem. If, however, they are metaphorically eating you up inside, keeping you awake at night, one of the statements I've heard a lot is people saying this actually hurts their heart, and they almost feel the physical pain of that. That is where it would become an issue. But it's not about saying, oh my God, you shouldn't have these things, we need to banish them from the kingdom and get rid. It's not that. It's if they are causing you a problem and interfering with your life, that's now where we want to sort of kind of do something and intervene. Hold on, just gonna move that. Cool, just moving something out of my way. So context and background. The thing I would call this, the thing that we saw, and I know there are things floating around now that it was staged and he's really alive and well somewhere, we don't know the extent of what goes on in this world. But if we take at face value what we've seen, for me and for many others, that was a modern day lynching of a black man in broad daylight. Sadly, it's not the first time we've seen that, which I think is why it's caused so much uproar. And I actually wrote a blog, I published it on the 20th of December, the year 2014. As I sit here before you today, it's 2020, just turned into June 2020. That's a long time. The blog that I wrote was entitled, I Can't Breathe, the racial evolution that needs to be heard. When this happened, I went onto social media and I saw the hashtag I Can't Breathe. I assumed it was from 6 years ago in terms of, anniversary. And it wasn't until I looked more closely, I was like, oh my goodness, this whole thing has just happened again. It's like history repeating itself. And so every time that happens, old wounds, old feelings, and feelings of oppression are being triggered. Because another thing I've heard people say as well, you weren't even around when slavery was around. Why would that make any difference? But when you see that sort of thing happening before you, for those of you here, let's say, who are black, Afro-Caribbean, African, whatever you want to call it, if you grew up in the UK, and I think it must have shown in the United States, I grew up watching something called Roots, and it was a serialization. Quite graphic, and there are bits of it that I actually as a child couldn't watch or do the old, oh my God, but you could still hear what was going on. So when you see those things, if you've already got that in your mind and somewhere in your psyche, then when you see this happening, those feelings can be triggered. And much of the time when we see this going on, justice is not served. People walk away scot-free. And we've even had the case where somebody actually took the gun that they'd killed someone with and were auctioning it off to the highest bidder, and that's the police. So there's something that was kind of interesting. We're going to talk about this a bit more when we talk about the elephant in the room. But one of the things, I watched a documentary a few years ago, it was on BBC television, and they talked about the fact that second generation Holocaust survivors, as in the children of those in the Holocaust. So these children were not in a concentration camp. They weren't around when the Holocaust was on. However, the government had assigned counselors to help them deal with the mental burdens that they were carrying as a result of what had happened to their parents or their grandparents, because they recognized that these mental burdens can get passed down through the generations. Now, when I look at slavery, nothing like that has ever been done. People have basically been left to their own devices to just get on with it. And I think that's another reason why these things are coming up. And it's not just a case of, oh, well, why don't you just move along and forget all about it? And woke up last week just thinking, oh man, what can I do with regards to this? And I thought, let me just scroll. And I just scrolled for 10 minutes on Facebook, just to kind of see if I came across anything in terms of how people were feeling. Literally, it was the first post, and I just scrolled and I'm looking at the posts of my friends and friends of their friends and the comments that we're making, what you can see on the screen, but I'll say it out loud for those of you who might later be listening to this as an audio recording. Anger, frustration, exhausted, numb, traumatized, sadness, hopeless. Heavy was a big one, and that whole thing about the Holocaust survivors and the emotional mental burden, it just gives you that sense of heaviness as well. Fearful, fragile, ignored, a sense of rage, injustice, inequality, guilt. And you might kind of go, guilt's an interesting one. So I went and read those posts a bit more closely, and people just feeling guilty that they're pretty much sitting in their homes, in their living rooms, and just watching this happen. And you almost feel helpless, like you can't do anything about it. And also people feeling that like they had no value. And that was just 10 minutes of scrolling on Facebook. And that was when I was like, you know what, I think I might have to do something. Let me think about what that something is. And then actually someone who is here, well, I'm not sure if she's signed on yet because there are a lot of names. Yes, Danny Bletcher then kind of did a post and said, I want to know who here works with the Black community working through these issues. Now, Danny has a publishing company. And Danny, if you are actually here live, I think you are, feel free to put the link to the publishing company into the chat. That would be fantastic. And I, read that, and then my brain was like, we should really run a webinar about this. I'm like, no, I haven't got time. And, so we went back and forth. And Danny, you might have seen her name on the Big Marker landing page as well, because I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to be a little bit different with this one, because I'm going to pick up a demographic and a market that I'm not normally speaking to. So you would have seen the bullet points that Danny came up with as well, in terms of, okay, how do we pre-frame this so that people can deselect themselves before they even get here and before they arrive. So thank you, Danny, for that. Okay, here we go. These are the pictures that confronted people on social media. In the first one, it looks as though his eyes are open, so he's still making the statement, which we are going to look at. Second picture looks as though the eyes are now closed, and that's where you get to the point where I think there's 2.5 minutes where he's actually unresponsive. And the third one, the police just standing around. The angle that I didn't put on there is with the other 2 policemen kneeling on his body as well. So that is the death, the murder, however you want to put it, that we witnessed on social media in broad daylight. You can see it's daylight. And when I heard where it was, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because my memories of being in Minneapolis, that's where I did my photo reading instructor training. So I was out there for almost a month. And it was snowing. So if you've been to Minneapolis, they've got a lot of indoor tunnels. So we went out a lot, but it was just so peaceful, so beautiful, so quiet. So I think that rocked me a bit as well, in terms of what the heck is going on here. Now, this is where the I can't breathe started trending again. The last words were, please, I can't breathe. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. They're going to kill me. And that's exactly what happened. So George Floyd, and what I saw today, which it was bittersweet, but there was just a little, it's like 6 seconds. It was on Twitter where his daughter was on the shoulders of someone at a rally, and she was saying, my daddy has changed the world. And the person who's holding her says, what did you say? My daddy has changed the world. So when I saw this one, I don't know why, it just felt different. It felt as though it had rocked to the core and gone deeper than many of the other murders and slayings and lynchings that we've also watched in broad daylight. But that's how it just felt to me when I started to just, number one, for myself, how I felt, and also seeing the reaction of what was going on around us. And I think the thing that I'm kind of really mindful of is that I, seeing the pictures, not just of those last moments, but seeing George Floyd as a man and as a human being. So that's the context in which kind of was the main sort of, trigger for this. Thank you for the survey results. We had some really interesting demographics here. And that's why we're going to really do a piece on the backfilling and just talking about how we got to this kind of situation. Now, the elephant in the room, as I call it, is the Holocaust, because one of the things I see people saying a lot, well, you don't see the Jews going on about it all the time and keep going on about it, but actually, if I were to get my diary and flick through, there is a day, the Holocaust Remembrance Day is in my diary. The Holocaust took place between 1933 and 1946. Now, don't get me wrong, that's 13 years too long. And pretty much add on the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years where various people were being indoctrinated into that way of thinking and indoctrinated into a way of submission, so that when it really hit the fan, they were already very compliant and had also laid down their arms and all the rest of it. That's too long. And when you look at the African slave trade, it lasted for some 245 to 300 years. The reason there's such a big time span as well, let's just look at the Abolition of the Slave Trade Act in 1807 here in the United Kingdom. Trafficking, in terms of bringing in the slave ships, continued until 1811, even though it had been abolished. And so even when laws were laid down, they normally had, well, sort of like a bit like we've had with some of the coronavirus directives. They've been more like suggestions as opposed to hard and fast. But when you look at 13 years, and even if I add another 10 years onto that, 23 years versus 300 years, that will give you a little bit of an idea about why this topic is so much more ingrained for, as they say in the United States, people of color. And as I tend to say here in the UK, Black people. There's a big differential between those two. And even in the United States, segregation in the United States was legal until 1954. It was Brown versus the Board of Education that really shifted that. However, it wasn't until the Civil Rights Act in 1964 that was more blanket and more extensive. I was born in 1968. So had I been a few years earlier and lived in the United States, and even in the UK, you're technically speaking still would have been born into a time where there are places I could not go into. There'll be signs, no coloreds, whites only. And one of the things that they say here that you saw a lot when my parents would have come over in what you would call the Windrush generation, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. And actually a lot of the ones I've seen, the blacks and the Irish are underneath the dogs. That's crazy. And all of that, some of you, if you're just a couple of years older than me, all of that is in your lifetime. So we're not as far removed from the energy of that either. And I think that's one of the reasons why, if you want to put, people say, oh, it's chip on their shoulder. It's like, look at the size of that rock. It's massive. It's massive. And it's in our living memory. And we are being reminded of it every single day with what we see going on in broad daylight. So that's just to give you a bit of background and context as to why this is so pervasive. Now, I had a theory about this, and I was lucky enough to meet this wonderful woman, Eva Schloss. For those of you who've never heard of her, she is the stepsister of Anne Frank. So if you've heard of the Diary of Anne Frank, Eva was the stepsister, and I shared some of my observations about slavery with her. And this was, some of you might know, Alternatives, that's St. James's Church. Oh my God, I felt really naughty that day, because they'd said to us, if she's going to be doing a book signing, so get your book signed and then move along. But you can ask a quick question. So I just asked my question while she was signing the book. She then put, and I'm like near the front of the queue, so there's like 50 people behind me. She puts the book down, she puts the pen down, And she then gets comfy in her seat and she starts engaging me in this big dialogue and conversation. So I could feel like the stares and the looks of move along. But I thought, you know what? While Eva is talking to me and engaging with me, I'm not going to be going, anyway, got to go. I just thought, let me hear what she's got to say. So when we had that discussion and I shared my, she was stunned, number one, and then she agreed with me. Because one of the questions I asked of her, for example, about this thing, why are you always looking back, why are you looking back? I said, does it bother you having, she was in the concentration camp, so she's one of these people with the tattoo on the arm with a number. I says, how does that affect you with the Holocaust Remembrance Day, the fact that people are still talking about it, the fact that, you know, the world hasn't let it go? And I then said, because, you know, being Black, we're always told to forget about it, stop talking about it. Why are you always looking back? Why don't you move forward? You've got loads of opportunities now. Da, 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 da. And she said, I've never thought about it, which, why would you? And then she says, actually, I think you're right. She says, there is a part of course, that's a bit painful when you look back and you're being reminded of the situations that you found yourself in. However, her view was, you want the world to be reminded of these atrocities such that they never happen again. And that's often the way that people will talk about the Holocaust, but for some reason, slavery has not been afforded the same right and privilege. And I think that's another reason why it's such a hot topic and so emotive, because you're continually being told to sweep it under the carpet, to forget about it, to move on and take that chip off your shoulder. So really fabulous to speak with Eva. And I think for those of you in the membership group, it was one of our Wisdom Wednesday pieces. So I've shared more of that conversation in the membership group. Just go and use the search function down the left-hand side. Just type her name in and it will bring that one up, because after I had this meeting, I wrote more in terms of dialogue about it. Just for those of you who came in later, because I can see the list is very long now. So if you came in later, then one of the things you can do, if you've got questions, put them in the chat. If you've got private questions that you don't want other people to see, put them in the Q&A, and a little light comes on. Cool, there we go. So that's fabulous. Oh, absolutely. So Noreen was saying the Holocaust survivors may have received help from their trauma, from what happened to their parents. Unfortunately, many Black people not only suffer from the trauma of their ancestors, but are still going through the injustices today. Absolutely. And that is, for me, one of the reasons why it is important to have these conversations and have these discussions. I know when Marianne Williamson was running for office, she's withdrawn from the race now, but as soon as she said, I'm calling for repatriations, I'm like, whoa, I'm not sure she's going to make it very far, because I'm not sure that'll be popular. But that's one of the things she was calling for, in terms of going back and making good the money that's been made off the back of slavery, and doing something to allow people to be seen and to be heard. So it is absolutely that. For those of you I've never met before we get started, my name is Marilyn Devonish. I've got a long and eclectic background. I was studying to be a chartered accountant, very quiet and very shy, so decided I would do a communication skills course. Signed up by accident. I didn't realize what I was signing up for at the time, but signed up by accident for hypnotherapy and NLP and timeline therapy in Huna. I immediately got on the phone and said, this is not what I signed up for. I need my money back, please. They refused to give me a refund, but said, come to the training. If you don't get massive value, you can have a refund at the end. So now I'm really naffed off that not only have they got several £1,000s of my money, I'm now going to have to give them 7 days of my time. And so I went in really angry, and was angry for probably the first 3.5 days, then had a tipping point moment where I thought, you know what, put your money where your mouth is. I'm going to prove to you this is all nonsense. It can't possibly work. You could just talk to someone or send them energy and they could change in any way, shape or form. And the rest, as they say, is history. By the end of that training, I was completely transformed, hence the name Transformations. And just to put that even further into context, this was in October 2000. In September 2000, I contemplated committing suicide. So that's how broken everything was, that I was thinking of killing myself. So I did the what you call NLP practitioner, master practitioner, and then went on to be a trainer of NLP, a certified trainer of hypnosis, and a certified trainer of timeline therapy. I love the Huna so much. We'll talk a little bit about that later. That I actually then traveled over to Hawaii to study and learn the lineage for myself. And over the years, I've added probably 20 different modalities, including EFT, DNA theta healing, future life progression, soul plan reader, tarot, emo trance, energetic NLP, archetypal profiling, you name it. I've probably done it. And also some of you will know me for the photo reading instructor training. I became a photo reading instructor in March 2002, having been diagnosed with what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's in my 20s. I'm also a corporate trainer and public speaker and seminar leader. I also write for newspapers and magazines, have been doing that since around about 2003. Initially started off writing about emotional health and well-being, which I still love to this day, and have transitioned into other things. And as Tyra Banks would say, don't get it twisted, because people often see me speak now and just kind of go, really? This was my personality right up until the age of 32. Quiet, shy, lacking self-confidence, very low self-esteem, doing the whole self-sabotage thing, suicidal. And the way I described it is I felt as though I was on the outside of life and the world looking in, while all these other people were having a great time, socializing, having friends, not having dysfunctional relationships. And I just felt like I was on the outside, and I was always physically, emotionally drained, tired, weighed down, no energy. I was sleeping back in those days. I needed to sleep for about 12 to 15 hours a day just to be able to function. And even then I was always tired. And I always say to people, look, this wasn't a Lady Gaga thing. I was not born this way. I was like that right up until the age of 32. And the stuff, some of the things we're going to be talking about today are the things that turned everything around for me. That is why I'm so passionate about personal development. Not because I just read it in a book, and don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with reading about it in a book, but I lived it, I breathed it, and was very skeptical of it. And not only that, then was able to go out and do exactly the same and so much more with my clients. So the things I'm talking to you about today are the things that have been tried and tested over the past 20 years. Transformation has always been where it's at for me. So one of the very first book projects I collaborated on, it was authored by Dr. Paul Sheely, who's the creator of photo reading. For those of you who are into personal development, you probably heard of Anthony Robbins, the late Dwayne Dyer. If you're into Spring Forest Qigong, highly recommend it. Chun-Yi Lin, and also one of my favorite business gurus, Brian Tracy. So that was my very first kind of book collaboration. And we all wrote a personal story about how we've had some sort of difficulty, how we've overcome it, and how we've changed and transformed our lives. So the book is called Stories of Transformation. I didn't choose that title, they did. But the minute Paul Sheely phoned me up and told me that, I'm like, Paul, I'm in, because, you know, he invited me to take part. I also write for business publications, newspapers and magazines, and speak on the topic of flexible working, remote working, smart working, everything we're in the midst of now. So I've had pieces in The Guardian, Chartered Management Institute, Huffington Post, People Management, Up Journey, Psycred, PR Moment, Forbes, done several appearances on BBC Radio 5 Live, was on BBC Radio Kent last week. So I do tend to share the links on my social media page, so you can find all of the links to those articles there. And if there are any particular that you wanted to read, just let me know, because I have now started a spreadsheet to keep track of them. And outside of that, and the side that people would have no idea about, why would you? Because it's not something I talk about in the public domain. I've been a flexible working implementation consultant since 2003. So that's the last 17 years at this point. And that means going into organizations to help them implement smart, remote and flexible working policy and strategy. Everything from the redesigning of workspaces in terms of working with architects and ergonomic designers, right through to scoping and process mapping the work. Also through to the executive coaching side, where you're talking to people about the mindset of that and how to work effectively from home. So if any of you are climbing the walls during self-isolation, or your organization is thinking about making flexible working more permanent, you know where to find me. I've also been working at home since the year 2000. I've been offering online training, online coaching, and online therapy since 2005, and designing e-coaching solutions and automated things since 2013. And, you know, been running online video webinar trainings for about 4 years, coming up to 5 years now. I was waiting for the technology to catch up with me because it wasn't very good. And also do full-on online expos with your main stage and your breakout rooms and your sponsorship booths and your speed networking. So that is the other side of my world, which until recently people would have had no idea about. So that's me in a nutshell. Now, this is one of my favorite sayings from Huna. Think not that all wisdom is in your school. What that means is you might think you have discovered or got the best thing, process, product, service, strategy, modality since sliced bread, and there's going to be another way to do it. It's not the be all and end all. So everything I'm sharing with you today, some of it just my thoughts, feelings, and observations, but in terms of the processes, this is not the only way that you can do it. So for example, I might do a timeline therapy piece with one client, but the next client who comes along, they'd actually benefit from EFT. So I'll show them an EFT process, for example. So this isn't the be all and end all. What I'm doing, and what I always say to those of you in my membership group, I am offering you some thoughts, some ideas, some suggestions, and it is then for you to go, hey, I like that, that fits. Not really me, but thank you very much. So that's one of my favorite sayings, and I pretty much add it to all of my trainings, because and even in the time we have available, there is a ton of stuff we can't even get around to talking about. So why look at the past? We're going to just kind of run through a few of these things. Exploring the past, for me, in a therapeutic context, it's about going back to identify the root cause, because when you pull out the root cause, it's like weeding a garden. If you just do a quick surface level pull, which is what we basically have with slavery. So, yeah, it looks great. Everything's fine. Woohoo. High fives, everyone. Well done. Good job. However, I'm not a gardener. I don't have green fingers, but I know about weeds. I've got a lot of them in my garden at the moment. If you just pull them up quickly at just surface level, they're going to come back, and they're probably going to come back thicker, harder, faster, stronger, longer. Very similar with the human psyche and all of the stuff that's going on. So my preference is, let's go back to the root cause, which is normally, I'm pointing over there because when I'm doing timeline stuff with clients, it's normally over there. But it normally predates where you are. And that's why you need to go back there to find the root cause. And any of you who follow science and genetics, etc., you may have seen, and these studies came out, what, 3-4 years ago? Probably saw the first one 5 or 6 years ago. They were speculating, but now they've proved it. They've done experiments with rats where they have shocked and traumatized, let's say, rat number 1. Rat number 1 then has offspring. And they either take away the stimulus or take away the response. They just do one thing. So let's say they might shock and traumatize the rat, number 1, and then introduce a smell at the same time. A bit like Pavlov's dogs with the what we'd call in NLP terms, the anchoring. When that rat number 1 has offspring, they can either introduce the sound or introduce the smell. Rat number 2, who wasn't there for the trauma, shows the same trauma reaction. And rat number 2 then has offspring. Rat number 3, who now totally was nowhere to be seen and probably wasn't even a glint in anyone's eye, they can introduce one or both of those stimulus. Rat number 3 has a trauma reaction. If you're seeing that in rats, why doesn't it make sense to people that you could see the same thing in human beings? And the thing about the human beings, even though my generation were not there when slavery was happening, we've seen it. We've seen the depictions of it, even when you don't want to see it. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why people would almost pretty much, the way I've always said it, it feels as though many of us carry the trauma of slavery in our DNA. That is how it feels. And that is what these studies are actually now starting to prove and now starting to show. It's also where you would go to maybe understand some of the limiting beliefs. For me, when I did the training back in October 2000, big limiting beliefs for me, which I didn't even know what they were before I was on the training. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough, I'm not capable. Where did that come from? I could tell you a couple of instances in childhood and with my family dynamics and things that happened growing up. I can list some of those things in terms of what we call significant emotional events. However, there is also a chance that some of that was picked up not just from my genealogy in terms of my parents and their grandparents and great grandparents, and so your generational line could also have been picked up ancestrally, and also picked up from society and the world around me in terms of what I saw going on. And all of those things could then contribute to the way I felt about myself. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not capable. And if you don't feel any of those things, it's a logical conclusion that you might just consider killing yourself, because why would you? You're not worth anything. You got nothing to do, nothing to say, nothing to contribute to the world. So you want to go back sometimes and see what was the root. Where did this limiting belief start? Where did you pick up that thought, that idea, that belief that contributes to how you see and perceive yourself? And then there's also the legacy of all of the old emotions. So the things we're seeing now being shared very openly on social media and in the press and in the news, the anger, the sadness, the fear, the guilt, the anxiety, a lot of that can predate you because you feel angry on behalf of others, on behalf of what's happened now, right now, and then on behalf of how people have been treated over the last 300 years, 400 years. So that's why you'd want to explore the past. This is a module from a webinar series that I ran last year, the Raising Your Money Vibration, where we did a piece on remnants. And when I was thinking about this, I'm like, actually, this is kind of one of the things I'd attribute to what we're feeling. It's like having a black cloud constantly lurking on you, lurking above your head, and then all too frequently the heavens open and you get rained on, like we've just seen happen on social media in front of us. You can also have remnants of past disappointments where, I tried that, I was blocked. You had an experience where somebody was either covertly or overtly racist. All of that can kind of feed into the mix as well. And then it can start setting up a fear response where you are now reluctant to move forward and try and do that thing again. You just kind of go, I might as well stay where I am. And then if you've got the limiting beliefs going on, that all feeds itself and it just becomes this awful self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the weird thing about the remnants is they can belong to you or someone else. When I ask my clients the questions around that, they was like, oh my God, it's not even mine. It belongs to someone else, and people don't even realize. And if you think of it in terms of, even child psychology, child development, that 0 to 7, what they call the imprint period, that's where a lot of that can happen as well. And then it's insidious, it's often intangible. It's not necessarily in your face. It's almost just on the boundary of your comfort zone. You go to, here we go. I won't say the full statement. It's too offensive. And I think people are already triggered enough, but you can finish it for yourself if you know what I'm talking about, where you call somebody an uppity, fill in the blank. It normally begins with an N and ends with an R. So that whole thing, getting above your station, who do you think you are? Know your place. All of that can then keep you stuck. And that's why people would look and go, the opportunities are there. Why don't you go for it? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But then all of these other things are piling on top of you. And even when you attempt to go beyond your comfort zone, either your own fears and anxieties will pull you back, or with the thing that we call institutionalized racism, that system is now going to click into gear and close that avenue down for you anyway. So even if you do put your best foot forward and you do step out of your comfort zone and you do go for things, a lot of the times you find yourself being rejected. And of course, it's very easy to say, oh, it's close, thank you for applying. Oh, we had a couple of candidates who just had the skills. It's easy to say those things. And there are times I know I've walked away from something where the color of my skin has outshone the brilliance of my CV and my skills and my capabilities. And I've known that to be true. And it's not just speculation. I remember once I was on a Skype call. This is when Skype was very new. So a bit like people are now discovering Zoom. I'm on a Skype call. I'm introduced by the project lead, so the person heading up the whole thing and funding it. I'm introduced as the project lead and the project manager, basically. And at the end of it, because it was new, I'm sat at my desk, the meeting is over, and the people are in their office, so the other people I was talking to on Skype, they didn't realize, and I didn't realize until I heard their voices, because I'd gone out of the room, came back, sat down, and I heard them talking. I was like, oh, what's that? And then I heard what they were saying. They were talking about me. Who the bleep is she? Why the bleep has she been brought in? Who the beep does she think she is to be managed? Seriously, I'm just like, whoa, this was on day one of the project. I worked with those people for about 2 years. They have got no idea to this day that I heard that conversation. No idea. And actually, I would go as far as to say they are friends of mine. I don't even know if I'm ever going to bring it up. I don't really see the need, but it was just so very interesting to hear those behind closed, because to my face, they were wonderful, friendly, lovely to meet you. Oh yeah, really looking forward to working with you. So if I just had that bit of the conversation, I would have gone away thinking, oh my God, that went amazingly well. And then I'd be surprised when I was getting pushback and resistance when I'm asking them to do something, or I'm looking at ways and I'm thinking, why are they trying to sabotage me? But now, having heard what was being said, I understood the whole game completely. And I then had to make sure that I was 2 or 3 steps ahead of the game. And this is one of the things people will say to you. Black people often have to be 3, 4, 5 times, 10 times better than their counterparts just to sort all that out. There's a lot that goes on, a lot that goes on. Now, if we add into the mix the grief cycle, I did a webinar for the Watford and Hertfordshire Chamber of Commerce 2 weeks ago, and for the Watford Chaplaincy Service. It was talking about working from home and talking about self-isolation. So what can you do in terms of your mindset, and what are the strategies you can use for enhancing your ability to work at home? But I actually opened with the grief cycle, and I guess people who watch you might be going, why is she talking about grief? We're in the grief cycle right now. You start with shock. What? COVID-19 or what? George Floyd? What just happened there then? You then go into denial. Nah, must be a hoax. Nah, can't be right. That will never be in lockdown. Now you are in lockdown. First thing people did was start protesting. First thing people did with George Floyd, with their protesting. Then you can hit into that point of depression, which is where many people are sitting now. You'll see what I mean when we look at the survey results. And so just add on to all of that, the grief cycle, which many Black people, people of color, are going through continuously. It's a bit like Groundhog Day. And imagine spending your whole life going through that cycle, and you've always now got to try and pull yourself up and and you'll see many people said in the survey, I didn't repeat the words over and over again, but the word tired came up a lot. So there's a lot that goes into the mix of this. And if you have unresolved grief about something else, to find yourself in a situation where something else happens that throws you back into the grieving cycle, the old feelings can now get re-triggered. It's a whole massive process. So the ancestral exploration. You'll be surprised. There were the main instigators of this. Lydia is saying, were many of those people you were on the call with men? Sometimes being a woman can add to the problem. I've definitely had it as a problem when I turned up on site, because I'm a corporate trainer, so leadership development training, away days, executive coaching, totally had the attitude from a lot of men, because number one, they probably don't like being managed by women, and number two, not a Black woman with dreadlocks, for goodness sake. But Lydia, you may be surprised to know the 2 main instigators of this conversation were women. So it wasn't a man thing, because if it was, I might have gone, oh well, but it was 2 women. So it was very interesting, to say the least. So in terms of our ancestors, and I really like this picture, because it's the clocks and the hands of time and the ethereal sort of nature of it all. Question for you. Do you believe you have ancestral ties? I put karmic ties in italics because that kind of really comes down to your belief system, because not everyone believes in karma. Sometimes it's just a personal thing. Sometimes it's dictated by the religion that you follow. But do you believe in karmic ties? And do you believe in genealogical ties? Because I think they can all operate in the same way as this very quick diagram. Thank you, Wan. Wan says yes in capital letters. That something can happen, like the domino effect. It can appear that it's just that one random thing there, but then it's like, and it flows around the timeline, as I call it, and bang, will come and slam you down. And then my question to my clients is, okay, if you believe in these things, how do you know that you have them? And the knowing is not always intellectual. Sometimes it's a thought, it's a feeling, or it's sometimes people can describe it. They almost like describe a scenario, like a visual of a scenario, a bit like this visual here. So I say to people, how do you know that you have it? And the reason you want to know how you'll know you have it, how you know it's there potentially, is if you know what it's like when it's there, how will you know when it's been resolved and when it's now disappeared? Because when you know it's there, and you know what it's like to have it, you will also then be able to identify the absence of it, such that when it's gone, it can be a cause for celebration. And if necessary, you fill it with something else that you now want to have instead. So for example, changing a limiting belief, I'm not good enough, worthy enough, capable enough. You don't just take the limiting belief out and go whoopee doo. You put something in its place, because nature abhors a vacuum. So if you leave that old gaping hole there, it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Boom, I'll just do what I've always done. So take that one out, you put something else in. And so when you know something has disappeared, and oftentimes people will say, oh my God, I feel like there's a weight on my shoulders. I feel like something is holding me back. I feel that I don't have a voice, for example, is how they'll say how they know they've got it. Okay, what will it feel like when that's now disappeared? Oh my gosh, I will feel lighter, freer, as though a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, as though it's all right for me to be who I am and speak with my own authentic voice. So I would invite you all to, and this is something you can do as a bit of home play. My photo readers, those of you in my workshops know I like my home play. But what you can do as a bit of home play is just say for yourself, okay, do I believe? Which of those, if any of them, do I believe? How do I know? And what would it be like when it has now disappeared? Because in that whole thing about what would it be like when it's disappeared, what you're starting to do is future pace your mind into the future and telling it, this is what I'm going for, this is what it'll be like. And then your brain and neurology can actually respond to that and go, oh, that's cool. And the nice thing is, when it starts to happen, you will notice, because those of you who've done any kind of form of this sort of transformation work, oftentimes you can get to the end of the session and go, well, is that it? But you didn't do anything, you're just talking. Like, oh yeah, well, we'll do something next time. And then clients just wake up a couple of days later and realize they feel different, better. The first time it dawned on me, which is why I always now get my clients to benchmark, probably around about 2002/3, worked with a woman who had issues with her mother. So the mere mention of her mother's name, she'd be in tears, broken, couldn't live her own life. So we do the breakthrough session. Back then I just did 1 day breakthrough session. So you come in at like 10 o'clock in the morning, we whiz your whole life around, get to the root cause, clear the limiting beliefs, insert some new stuff in your timeline, hypnotize you, off you go, have a nice life. But what I used to do is hold like a little bit of time back so we could just do a cleanup, what I call a cleanup session. So she comes back for the cleanup session, having had miraculous results while we're in the room. And she says, about this breakthrough session, I don't think it worked. I want a refund. I was like, well, hold on a minute, because I tested everything before she left. And I said, okay, let's just have a chat. Let's just find out what's been going on. And I went through my notes and I then started to use all the trigger words, which previously threw her into tears and a state of just stuck, confused, angry, all the rest of it. No reaction whatsoever. She was just like, what you asked me this for? It's just like nonplussed. So I said, let me show you something. And I opened my notebook. To this day, I still use my black and red notebooks. And this is the exact same pen I used as well. I said, let me show you this. And I opened my notebook. And because she was crying so much, there's nothing for me to do while she's crying. So I just wrote, crying, ... Then I drew a little sad face with tears. And then I wrote ... still crying. And so there's a whole section in my notes with the date. And she could see that things had come after her session. And I pointed and I said, what does that say? She went, crying. Went, yeah. I said, what does that say? Still crying. And I said, how many little things are there? And because I did, like, you know, that you do those little number stacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So every time another minute passed, I was just doing number stacks. And she went, 7. I went, you were crying for 7 minutes just at the mere mention of your mother's name. Was I? Yes. Oh, well, I don't, she just didn't even remember ever feeling that bad, and it had only been like a week and a half. So when you do this work, it can be fast, and that's why people don't then give themselves enough credit for the change, because they immediately put their focus onto 1 or 2 things in their life that they now want to sort out, and they bring that in as the problem where actually that wasn't even on their radar before. So benchmarking is key, and these are a couple more questions that you can play with as well. So number 1, where did you pick up your thoughts and beliefs about your sense of worth, your sense of self, or you might even say your sense of self-worth or self-value? Where did you pick up those thoughts and beliefs? And just go with the first thing that comes to mind. And if you choose to, you can write that down. If you're somebody who has a journal or a notebook handy, you can write that down. If you feel like it, you can put it in the chat or put it into the Q&A. Second question, what do you believe about your past? Now, that's a really big, wide open question. People go, what do you mean? I go, you choose the context, whatever it is that comes to mind. What do you believe about your past? There'll be something that comes to mind. Your own inner mind will choose the context and direction and the answer of that question. And of course, for those of you here live, we're just going through this. There's going to be a replay recording. It's definitely recording. And if you're watching this as a replay, at this point, you can actually press pause if you want to do this as a coaching exercise. Number 3, do you know anything about your ancestors and their genealogical line? And if you do, you can write it down. For me, it's all anecdotal, and it's a lot of it is based on what was presented to me by society, presented to me by the media. And I know some people would have done their family tree, so you can be very much more specific about it. Number 4, how would you describe your ancestors? How would you describe your ancestors? And that was number 4. And number 5, are you aware of any patterns or beliefs that have been passed down, handed down through the generation? So for example, I did a breakthrough session with a client. It was around money and wealth, and she'd been in the unfortunate situation where she'd ripped off by a business partner and lost everything. So we did a timeline therapy piece where we went back through her ancestral and genealogical line. And she saw, now when I say saw, I don't mean like, glorious technicolor watching TV like you're watching the webinar now. But when I say saw, she saw it in her mind's eye. She saw the scenario, and she said, I've just seen there's a 2-generational pattern. I said, what do you mean? She says 2 generations have money, 3rd generation comes along and loses it. 2 generations have money, 3rd generation comes and loses it. She says, I'm the 3rd generation. The scenario that she saw was they had the country pile, and they actually did. And then 3rd generation gambled it away and lost it on the turn of a card. So drinking, gambling, spend the money, freely, wine, women and song, was gambling, put the house up, lost the whole thing on the turn of a card. So that was the 3rd generation. Next 2 generations built it back up. She's 3rd generation, wasn't of her doing, just so happens her business partner cheated her, embezzled her, ran off with all the money, so she had to sell her whole property portfolio. So, when you look back and you go back and you look at those genealogical patterns, there are times where clients will see something or get a sense of something, they have no idea if it's right, and then they'll go off and do the research, and we go, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what happened, and they had no idea, but they've seen it in the timeline therapy piece when you go back and look at the past. So, and sometimes you're just aware of the patterns, or even the ways that people talk around you in your family. You can get some of those patterns from that. And Cecilia says family constellation work reveals all of this and more. Absolutely. So when I take people through that ancestral genealogical constellation, it is absolutely fascinating in terms of what is revealed with that. And Penny says, yes, here, financial roller coaster. And sometimes, again, those things, because people then, it's almost like there's a sense of relief, because people always feel, oh my God, it's not completely my fault, because people blame themselves and they feel guilty about these things. And sometimes there are contributing factors. So all of these things are really, really interesting to start looking at and start uncovering. Andrew, I don't know if you're seeing this, but Penny says, hi, Andrew, thanks for inviting me here. Penny, thank you very much for coming. I'm glad you're here as well. And this was, again, a module from one of the workshops that I'd run last year. But one of the things we're looking at exploring the ancestral, genealogical and karmic ties, and then, you know, doing whole processes to clear them. And one of the questions I asked of the group is, what are you carrying that it is now time to release? And go with what comes to mind. And just as was being talked about here, one of the things I recommend for doing this is, for me, I've developed a process which is kind of the constellation intersection process. So we're not only looking at the constellations and the intersection points. We do that both genealogically and ancestrally and karmically, if that's where people's belief set sits as well. But we're also then doing the work to send the clearing and the healing back along those constellation lines, both into the past, into the present, and actually out into the future. There's some ecology checks that you have to put. You can't just go and do that because you would be interfering with other people's timelines, etc. So we do the ecology piece around that. But that, seriously, people, I remember one of the clients and actually it was probably the first time I formally did this as a process. I mean, I probably have the testimonial somewhere, but I haven't got it to hand to read it to you. But she sent me a thing because there was all sorts of stuff going on with the family. They'd had a death in the family, which again sometimes brings out the worst in people. And so we did this process for her. And she then had to go home for Christmas, which again was a very tense time. She says, Marilyn, I didn't even recognize some of my relatives. They were that lovely, you know. And one of them, who never gets in contact, think it sent her a card or a letter or something. She was like, I don't know what you did to them, but whoa, because other people actually do change, but we haven't done anything to them per se. It's when we're looking at those constellations and we're looking at those intersection points. So, you know, I would definitely say the question you might want to ask yourself as we're going into that, we're going to be looking at the clearing piece in a bit, is what are you carrying that it is now time to release? The next part of that question, is it okay to release it and resolve it and let it go? And the reason I'm saying it's now time, this isn't about pulling up everything, because it might not be time for you. It might be that you just have to do the first layer, the first iteration. So this, and seriously, trust me, therapy is one of those things where all isn't always best. There are times where you just want to chip away at something, work with the first layer, because you may not yet be in a position to handle everything. And for those of you who watch the what I call the spoken word piece that I did on Sunday, if you're watching this in real time, where I did a read of the transcript of my blog, one of the things I went through as I took you through the timeline of that blog that I wrote in 2014, I was talking about the points in history where, you know, we got to a point where, okay, we let the blacks in, you can sit at the counter. That was all the world could handle. More time passed. Now people are dating, getting together, marrying, procreating. But that was all the world could handle. Then you get to a stage of, okay, we'll let you have a proper job. And you don't just have to be a manual worker. You could be a blue collar worker and maybe manage a couple of people. That was all the world could handle. Then you get to the next iteration where, okay, we'll give you a loan and yeah, you can buy a bit of land. That was all the world could handle. And then it goes on and it goes on and it goes on until the world is ready for President Barack Obama. But Barack Obama could not have been president in 1954. Couldn't handle it. You are exactly the same. You may be in a position now where all that you can handle is to remove a bit of fear. For example, if you're trying to dive into, anyway, you know, people have an ecology check. So your unconscious mind, inner mind, however you language it, will probably get in the way and be a gatekeeper, and will just stop that from happening. But I'm just telling you, consciously, don't try and force something that it's not time for you to release yet, particularly as you're all at home in your own spaces. If you're working with a therapist, yeah, let's get it all out on the table. Let's no holding back. but this is more of a remote thing, and I'm not with you one-to-one. So the time to release, that's really key and crucial, and you're asking yourself that. And I'm always saying you're going to be making sure that when we do this clearing work, you are doing it in a way that's right and healthy and ecological for you and for your greatest and highest good. That's really what we're going for. So if you haven't had any water for a while, since I've been gassing, definitely have some water. And let's get into giving you a little bit of an overview. Hold on a minute. Another question coming up. If you could let me have your answers to this one as well. There should be a poll that appears on your screen. Great, I can see the numbers, so you are finding it. Fab. Just want to know, do you know what access consciousness is? So okay, we've got lots of we've got a fair few no's already, because I was either going to skip this section and go, right, let's do it, but it's not fair to skip it if people don't know exactly what it is, because then it's just a bridge too far. When I start going right and wrong, good and bad, or nine pots, people are like, what the hell is going on? So we'll put a bit of context to this one for sure. 1 second, let me do that. Perfect. Right, here we go then. So let's have a whistle stop tour. Very fast. So Andrew says, my dad had serious issues with the parents and sisters around money, big time. And so those things can be so interesting, because if you then kind of tap into some of that, you can just kind of inherit that. Even when people say, oh, it's not for them, it's not for us. What's not for you? Well, no, I don't know. Money. Why not? Well, people with money who, and they'll reel off something. So where did you get that idea? Well, and I go, no, I don't know. Where did you get? And then when you really delve into it, they've just picked it up from someone else, because that's what gets said, and it just comes in by osmosis. So it's really interesting. Claire says, yes, mental illness, stroke breakdowns run in my family, and also I'm going to say that it doesn't mean it has to pass to you. It's not that clear cut. So just because you might have, most people have got a mad aunt, for example, or a crazy uncle, doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. However, what I say, where you pay more attention is if you notice that you're running those patterns, that's where it kind of gets interesting. So in a nutshell, Hawaiian Huna is an ancient Hawaiian healing practice said to date back 35,000 years, and it's about self-empowerment. It means secret or concealed knowledge because it was outlawed from the 1820s to 1979. I was born in 1968. And the reason it was outlawed, when the Hawaiians were colonized by the Bostonians did not understand what they were doing. So it went under the Witchcraft and Sorcery Act, because they didn't understand what was going on. So rather than understand it, they just decided to outlaw it. Can you believe 1979? That is crazy. And it works with symbols, works with energy, works with the elements. I'll show you just what a few of those symbols look like. That's some of them. There are like 36 of these in the book on the shelf behind me. And I use various symbols to clear various things. So for those of you who filled out the survey, what I did yesterday and this afternoon was just looking at that. And then I'm and again, I know it's going to be intuitive and in the moment, but I was just having to think about, that would be a cool thing to do for that. And that would be a good thing to do for that. And that would be a good thing to do for that. And the symbols are drawn on the breath and delivered on the breath. So it sounds a bit like, and what I'm doing is I'm drawing the symbols, and then you deliver the symbols on the breath. So when we start doing that, that's the noise that you're going to be hearing. Even when I'm working with people who have got no idea who I am and what I'm doing, and this was taken at an event called the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. So on the stage there, for those of you who are into personal development, you might recognize them. It's Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Dr. Bruce Lipton. And I was just about to go on stage, and this was when Grenfell Towers had happened. We had a really tragic a building, a block of flats, as we call them here, an apartment block, you might say, in the United States, caught on fire, and many people perished in that because it was made from material that was not fire retardant. I was just about, my foot was on the stage, the organizer comes running up and says, I've just heard that Grenfell Towers are downstairs. Can you do some sort of meditation before we bring on Lynn McTaggart? Lynn was the next speaker. And I was like, okay. So I walk on stage. At this point, nobody really knows me because it's the first day. And so I explain, residents from survivors from Grenfell Towers are downstairs. Before we start, can we just have, 3 to 5 minutes of your time just to guide? I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, I just do some Huna. So I said, I'm just going to do some energy work. So I do the Huna. And so for those of you who want to receive the energy as well, be open to receiving it, just like I'm saying to you guys. For the next 4 days, I could not walk 2 steps without somebody coming up to tell me about what had happened for them. So I've just put a few of the quotes on here. One says, thank you so much for everything, the Huna, and how beautifully you held the energy of the room and managed everything. Someone else says, I attended the 4-day TCCHE event a couple of weeks ago, and although I found the speakers fascinating, your Huna work had the most profound effect on me. Someone else says, I did speak to you at the event, brackets in the ladies. I'm telling you, even when I was in the toilet, somebody was shouting over, so Marilyn, I don't know what you did, but when you did this happened. And she was one of those people. So he said, I did speak to her at the event in the ladies and explained how I felt the energy around me and a sense of calm. But since that time, I'm quite amazed at what had happened. You will notice these are written in the past tense because people were emailing me several weeks after the event because what had happened in the room was still mad. And that's, for me, I always talk about the ripple effect. So, and there were 550 people in that room, and they all got something that was individual and unique and personal to them, even though I had no idea who they were. So I don't drink, but I often say Heineken. It's a bit like, there's a beer called Heineken here, and the strapline is Heineken refreshes the parts that other beers cannot reach. And I find that Huna just has this incredible way of working its magic. And for me, it was a mini genealogical thing that happened for me when I first came across Huna. When I did my training, the guy just did a silent version, so he didn't even bother to do the symbols. And my relationship with that family member changed within the space of 24 hours. And that was 20 years ago. It's never reverted back. And that person was not in the room. They didn't even know who I was thinking about. And one of the problems was they would never call me. After he did the process in the room, that evening I got home, there was a voicemail from them. And I phoned them because I thought, well, there must be some emergency. They were just phoning to have a chat. I was like, they must have been abducted by aliens, because that's the only way I can describe what's just happened there. And I had a client who phoned me years ago, probably about, 15 years ago, to say they were going to commit suicide. So I said, okay, maybe hold off, don't do it tonight. Can I send you some Huna? Fell asleep, woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sent them some Huna. They would have had no idea what I was doing. I'm here in Watford in Hertfordshire. They live in South London, as we say. And they sent me an email the next morning saying, I'm really sorry, really embarrassed. I had a really bad relationship breakup. Haven't slept for the past few months. I drank too much last night, really embarrassed. But she said, this is the part where you tell me I probably lost my mind and gone a bit mad. She said, suddenly around 3 o'clock this morning, I felt really calm, really peaceful, and I just had the best night's sleep I've had in months. And that is why hairs stood up on the back of my neck. And that's when I relayed the whole thing that had happened, where at 3 o'clock in the morning, I suddenly woke up and went, oh my God, I didn't do the Huna. So I'm actually just sat in bed going, thinking of her, doing the Huna, went back to sleep. And not only did she feel it, she felt what I sent, because the symbols I chose were the words that she used. She was off her face. She would have had absolutely, and that was my first inkling. I know that energy travels. I knew it intellectually, but this was the first time I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And since then, you've probably heard me talk about some of the, or those of you who have done a webinar before with Huna, I've had incredible things happen. So this is the wonderful Floyd, the white collar warrior, as he's also known, teaches martial arts, but also works as a trader in the city. He'd been out of contract, out of work for 9 months. We did a Huna telephone session. Within a couple of days, contracts were coming in, to the point where one of the guys said, can you start tomorrow? And he's like, oh, because when you've been off work for 9 months, he's got kids, so he got into the habit of, you know, taking the kids to school and all that sort of stuff, so he had to get some logistics sorted out. This was about 6 years ago. He's been busy ever since. And he'd said, you're not going to believe this. Clients always say that after we've done a session. So he says, you have an amazing ability and it is having miraculous effects. So telephone, I will also show you a piece where somebody wasn't live. They were just watching the recording. So if you are watching this as a replay recording, chill, relax. The clearings can still work. And this is from the lovely Pippa Neve, who's a therapist out in Australia. And because of the time difference, she wasn't there live on this occasion. Or for those of you who did the Raising Your Money vibration program, you know she's getting up at 3 or 4, 5 o'clock in the morning because she loved it so much. But on this occasion, she wasn't live. She listened to an MP3, so an audio recording, a couple of days after I'd done it. And what I didn't realize until last year, when I put this in as a testimonial, of course, with her permission, it wasn't until I was reading it to the group, I suddenly realized that she was describing the order and sequence that I did the Huna. It was a telephone call. This was before the days where I even showed people the symbols, and I couldn't show them the symbols anyway because we were on the phone, and I didn't even talk about them. And it wasn't until because there is a red triangle. There is one where the light comes from the center of you, where she talks about the whole thing about feeling compressed. There's a symbol that I use, thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake. She described order, sequence perfectly, even with colors, exactly what I was doing, and she had no idea what I was doing. So even if you're just watching the recording, chill out, relax, it's all good. And for me, I actually found this one yesterday. I got this dolphin into trouble. Oh, I felt really bad. So I'm in the Caribbean, they do the dolphin thing. So I checked, I said, you know, are the dolphins in pens or and they said, no, the dolphins swim out into the ocean when they're not working, and they actually come back to eat and when, you know, whatever. So the dolphins were pretty free. So I go there and I'm just, you know, and at breakfast, I was on a cruise. I was on a Caribbean cruise for 2 weeks. And over breakfast, I'm talking to people, what do you do? And I said, oh, I do energy work and Reiki and Huna and da-da-da-da. And I said, I'm going to the dolphins. They said, oh, you know, animals are really responsive to this stuff. And I was like, actually, do you know what? They are, aren't they? So I decided, oh my God, I decided that when I was in the water while she's explaining what's going to happen, I decided I would send some Huna to the dolphin if the dolphin wanted to receive it. Oh my word. Dolphin turns around, makes a beeline for me and nuzzles into my stomach. The trainer looks all shocked and she went, oh, and I said, it's all right. I said, it's fine, don't worry about it. So I'm sending the Huna to the dolphin, and then I'm stroking the dolphin, and I'm stroking the dolphin and playing around. She said, the dolphin never lets anyone touch him there. You know, I went, well, that's fine. So now she's kind of, you know, she can see she's, as we call it back in the Caribbean, she's on the back foot because now it's messing up her presentation. So I go first for the picture. And there's like, I think there were like 6 of us in the group, and we had 3 groups. And so one group was there taking a picture. Another one was with a different dolphin. We're in this group. So, okay. So I do the picture. She then tries to move the dolphin on. The dolphin was having none of it and basically pinned itself up to me and was just by my side. So she's trying to do it would not go to the next person. So in the end, they had to abandon the whole photo shoot, and our group had to wait until another of the groups had finished their photos so they could use somebody else's dolphin. So she went, I said it, and I felt bad, but I thought, I can't even begin to go into the conversation with her because now she's got a job to do. She's managing our group, and now she's all flustered because the dolphin is not behaving for the first time and she can't understand why. And so all I said, oh, animals tend to like me. But it was crazy. It was bonkers. And again, you couldn't make that stuff up, even if you tried. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. I might find it because I put the audio there to remind myself. I'm going to see if it will play because this was random, completely random. I got this message yesterday. I'm going to pump up the volume. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it. I'm going to press play anyway. You can see if you can hear it because she gave me permission to share it because I said I'm running this. Let's see if it will work. It's thinking about it. If it plays, I'll stop talking. I'll let you hear it. But it's thinking about it. We'll maybe come back to that one. And people experience it in such different ways, but there'll be times where somebody is saying, talk about grab. This is from one of my photo readers, because we do a bonus Huna session on the Friday night, but she was saying, talk about grabbing the bull by the horns when you did the Huna healing on me. Oh my God, couldn't believe how accurate your diagnosis was. You didn't tell me you were a doctor as well, because there are times I'll pick up on the physicality of something. I don't know what's going on with people, but when I say it out loud, they're like, oh my God, how did you know that? So let's just say it's interesting the way that it shows up. And even with other people, this is something I did for one of my clients where he was having problems with a neighbor. Oh, hang on.
Vicky, hope you're well. I just wanted to say a massive thank you for two things, really. It was lovely that you did the Huna call the other day, and I actually listened to it this morning because today's a really important day for us. We had our CQC registration interview today, and I did the Huna this morning and completely smashed it out of the water. So we should be getting our registration quite soon. But I just want to say a massive thank you to you, and I would love to be part of your Huna sessions going forward. Have a lovely day, and thank you once again.
I have not seen Vicky so that's lovely Vicky Condell. Some of you might know her from the Yes group. I haven't seen Vicky for at least 2 or 3 years. Randomly sends me a voicemail saying thank you, and I said, what's she thanking me for? I've not seen her for years. And I did a Huna webinar call. Apparently I said, what were you listening to? She went, it's the one you did on the 24th of May, so a couple of weeks ago. She just listened to the recording before she had this interview thing. So that's the sort of thing that happens. That was completely random, out of the blue. So I then went back to her and said, oh my God, I'm running a webinar tomorrow, because it was yesterday. I said, can you do me a testimony? Is that all right? She went, yeah, sure. So completely random. So it works in incredible ways. And with this one, the thing that was going on with my client, it had been happening for best part of a year. I think it was 9 months at that point. It was about a rusty car that had been parked in my client's driveway. Long story, won't go into it now. The long and the short of it is, the day after, because he was driving full of rage because he'd had another altercation with his neighbor. The day after, I said, pull over. We did some Huna over the phone. He's on his mobile, in his car, on the motorway, on the shoulder. I'm here going, next day, the car was gone. And that's his wife's. He said, he phoned me up, he says, Marilyn, the rusty car is gone. Anna, which is his wife, Anna thinks you're a white witch, because I don't even know who the neighbor is. To this day, I don't know I don't know the neighbor's name, anything about it. So we're going to be using these symbols, and we're also going to be using this thing called access consciousness. In a nutshell, it's great for clearing old judgments, old beliefs, old limitations. So Gary Douglas is the creator of access consciousness. Dr. Dane here is the co-creator. Go forth and look them up. But this is when I did my level 4 training with them a few years ago, well, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now in London. And the access consciousness centers around this clearing statement, which is right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. You don't have to understand what the statement means. I've had clients who giggle their way the whole way through it, and it still works. And just to give you a sense of, why I use it, it has allowed me to work a lot more quickly, a lot more powerfully with things. When I paired it with Huna, it was just like this exponential powerhouse combination. Deceptively simple. Clients, you can use this for yourself. So that clearing statement, right and wrong, good and bad, all 9, pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. We haven't got time for me to explain what it means, but there's something on my website. I've got a free resources page. I put a whole document together about what it means and actually giving you some starter clearing statements. So if you want a copy of that, either go to my website or drop me an email. I'll send you a copy in the next couple of days. But it unlocks the energy without having to get into the story of it. and you can use it remotely, and it works in just a couple of minutes. And just these are some of the things. I've just seen somebody saying I need a money miracle. These are some of the things that have happened for clients. There was a friend who had an £800 tax bill, didn't have the money to pay it. I just finished doing my access consciousness training and was putting the Huna together. She was one of my first guinea pigs. I no longer call people guinea pigs, I call them test subjects. So those of you on my e-newsletter list, you will know when I'm putting something new together, I go out to my e-newsletter list. I asked for a couple of volunteers to test things out with me. So I did a test thing with, this is a friend of mine. Some of you actually know Amana Shaka. She has talked about this publicly, which is why I'd say her name. And so we did the Huna Access. 2 days later, brown envelope arrives from the HMRC, which is who was chasing her for the money. She's like, oh, I already told you I'm going to try and pay you. She opens the envelope. It's a check for £826. She's like, what's going on here? Apparently a business she'd had years ago with her sister. They had no idea there's any money outstanding. It just arrives randomly. So she takes that £826, puts it in the bank, pays HMRC the £800 that she owes. Another client lost the contract, went down to just pay it, £15-20 an hour. She wanted to earn £250 a day and have an unlimited contract. Did the Huna and Access. A couple of days later, she called into the office. They sit her down. They say, look, we've got this new piece of work coming up. Wonder if you'd be interested. Yeah, we can only pay you £250 a day. She's like, which is the exact number we talked about. And she said, and they said, how long would you be willing to stay for? When you're a contractor, you rarely get asked that question. You just take the work and you hope the contract will extend. So we've had some really cool things happen. And, some of you have heard me tell the story about Gina when she phones up, she's crying. I said, scale of 1 to 10, how much is the pain? 20. So like, okay. Within 5 minutes, she's back to being calm. Within 10 minutes, she's good to drive again. So, we've had some really interesting things happen for people, and also in terms of their motivation and clarity. So it is pretty amazing. So before we get started doing the trauma release bit, any questions, any queries, put them into the chat or put them into Q&A. I can see my lights are on, so I'm going to now scroll back and read through that. I want you also to ask your inner mind, is it okay to do the work and to do the clearing? If it's not, it's fine. You might kind of go at this point, thanks very much, had a really nice evening, I'm off now. Or you might go, actually, I'm going to wait and I'm going to listen to the recording. Or if it's just a yes, you're like, brilliant, let me release what it's time to release. And then you're asking that you're releasing what is timely and what's up for resolution. And you also want to focus on your ideal outcome. What do you want to achieve? When you've released that, how will you feel? How will you be different? How will your reactions and interreactions with life change? And you want to put it on what you want. So rather than saying, I won't feel as stressed, if you're not stressed, what will you be instead? If you're not angry, what will you be instead? If you're not traumatized, what will you be instead? If you're not feeling heavy, what will you be instead? And the reason you want to do that, you want to start training your mind into where you actually want it to go. So you might be calm, feeling more peaceful, feeling more balanced. That's a whole different ball game to feeling less stressed and feeling less trauma. So you want to start future pacing your mind in terms of what you wanted to experience. And I'm going to be asking you again, we've talked about it in passing, but asking you again that you're asking your unconscious mind, your inner mind, higher self, however you language it, that you do everything that is in alignment with your greatest and highest good, and in a way that is right and healthy and ecological for you. So you come out of the end of this process feeling better than when you went in. So, oh, hi Farhan, you always write the best. Your survey was just like, you are on it. You should do. I don't know if you write blogs and all the rest of it. If you don't, you really should. Super excited to clear all the ancestral trauma. Lydia says a German woman working at the bomb factory invited her on Sundays for cakes, and she would bake something special, things like butter from her rations all week. My mother did not say negative things or ever criticize anyone or say anything negative. That is wonderful. So this says, I'm lucky to have quite open-minded, nice parents. That is absolutely fabulous. So mother was Ukrainian, quarter Polish, parents had a farm in Poland. Soldiers took her when she was 12 years old as a slave to make bombs. Some of the German workers were working in the factory. Their husbands were gone and fighting the war. And she said they were nice to her, especially when she was the youngest one there. Oh, that was lovely. And so that's them finishing off from the Sunday cakes. That's really, really lovely. Just having a look. And Q&A, let me go there. So I want to clear inherited thoughts of being copied in business, as my great grandfather invented the soap, wow, that got stolen by a big company. Alrighty. And are there any side effects after receiving Huna? Fabulous question. Yes, there are many side effects. People feel wonderful, they feel amazing, they've got no idea how or why things have changed. They just know that miraculously things are just different. Even, and you might, I don't know if you asked this question before I went through some of the examples of how people have experienced Huna, but the side effect is that people feel incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, sometimes a little bit tired. I always say, look, don't schedule something like this when you're going to be out partying. Now we're in lockdown, so that wouldn't be the case at the moment. Go and have a good lie down. But once people have had that sense of, you know, and a bit like learning to photo read, we always talk about that sense of confusion, which people feel a sense of discomfort. When people are confused, I like the word discombobulated, it doesn't feel totally comfortable. So sometimes you've got to give your mind and your neurology a chance to sort things out and get them into alignment and make what I call, hang on, this was something I did earlier, what you want to do is you want to make those neurological connections. And while that's going on, people can be a sense of, oh, okay, what's going on here? But when that settles, people always have a sense of just feeling amazing. PA, whatever you clear will be good for me. Someone who's done this before. PS, sent this Q&A while still under public chat. Cool, okay. Hold on, let me go back. My other light's on. In the old chat, looking forward to releasing any current and inherited traumas and blocks. Felt amazing after your last webinar, and I had asked to experience more joy. Thank you. So that's from Patricia. So the person who asked that in the private chat, if you want to go back and read what Patricia said. Hey Patricia, were you on the thing that I did for Andrew's group? I think that's what you, oh, sorry, Andrew's now just said, Patricia is here too. Yes, cool. That was just the open webinar chat where I did a little bit of Huna. I probably did, I don't know, what did I do? 15 minutes, something like that. So Patricia, I'm so glad that worked for you. That is amazing. I love that. I love that. So hopefully that also answers your question without me having to answer it as well. Hold on. Perfect. Right. I think. Perfect. Oh, hang on, the other light's on. I'm having to jump back and forth. There we go. Patricia says it was quick but powerful, and that is why I love it. It is just like, let's do this thing. When people are ready, it's just like, wow. So, okay, Claire, I can see you. So you said your granddad had one of the most dangerous jobs in World War II, and it was a Lancaster tail gunner. Whoa. Okay. Claire, out of interest, did he ever talk about it? Oh, he survived. Good. I'm glad that I was thinking, did he talk about it? But did he survive? Great. Thank you. And no, he didn't. See, that's the thing that also used to happen. And I have to take my hat off to people. I don't know how they did it. They came back from war, business as usual. The stiff upper lip, tea and cakes, let's go. And there were many of those. I mean, I remember a friend of mine, he said it wasn't until he was clearing out his granddad's attic after he'd passed away, opened up this like sort of velvet box. You know, you get a necklace in if you bought a really expensive necklace, opened it up, a load of medals. He'd been decorated from now till Christmas, never said a word about it. They just bottled it up and kept it inside. I think where we really saw that come to pass, and the devastation of that, weirdly, was with the Vietnam War, because you would think that World War I and World War II, with the lack of resources, and we didn't have the same medical expertise that we have now, and people didn't even know about therapy, etc. You would think that World War I and World War II wrought the most devastation. I think it did personally for people, because people talked about how they had changed when they came back from war. But in terms of the rate of suicide and mental illnesses and the drinking and the drugs and all the rest of it, people who came back from the Vietnam War, they put on the map the whole idea of post-traumatic stress disorder. So they paid very dearly, but it woke the world up to the impact of that. Would like to clear hypervigilance and fear in tissues. Great, I know what you mean. And Andrew says, wow, interesting. Fahar says, hey Claire, hope you're well, long time no see. Oh, I love it. I always love a good review. That's what happens on workshops. People come and go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I'm glad we get an element of that online as well. This is cool. Right, so are we all good? We're good for your inner mind to do it, so let's go. So Andrew says yes. What I might do actually, because I'm in peripheral vision, I'm just so aware of, I can see, I mean, I know nobody should be out, but they're just walking past the window, so I'm just going to close my curtains. So while I'm closing my curtains, if you need the bathroom, go off to the bathroom now. If you haven't got any water handy, get some water and drink some water. Farhan says yes, yes, yes. Andrew, yes. Claire, yes. Brilliant. Oh, good. Bio break. Yeah, go for a bio break. I'm going to close the curtains. I'm going to have some water, and then we're going to get started with the energy clearing. You'll also hear my wind chimes, because I've got wind chimes that I just imagine that I break up the air when I open the curtains in the morning and when I close them. So if you hear a weird noise, it's my wind chimes. Okay. Right. Cool. And I'll just see if there are any further questions. And then we shall begin. Cool. So yes, brilliant, fabulous. Good, 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 good. Okay, so we had nearly neck and neck, sort of 50. So we got 53% know what access consciousness is and 47% no idea. So welcome to the new initiatives. We've got a lot of Huna aficionados on there. We've got 88% that know what Huna is and 2% that didn't. Welcome to those of you who are new. Hope you enjoy the experience. Right, so let's see. Perfect. Alrighty. Noticed, okay, that's interesting. So I noticed some people have trust problems in relationships. Having been a relationship coach for the first 9 years that I was in practice, I would say, trust me when I tell you it's all races. And actually, I would say when I was doing the relationship coaching, I would say 80% of my clients were men. And if I then look at the demographic, the racial demographic, I would say as little as 5 or 10% were black. So don't worry, people, you know, a lot of people have issues, but yeah, it's an interesting one. So I'm going to do something similar. For those of you who did the Raising Your Money Vibration program, I did something similar. I did a survey. I said, what is it you want to work on? What is it you want to clear? These are the things that they said. So I thought I'd do a similar approach with this one, where I'd take what you said on the survey and we will then power our way through. And some of these I'm going to be collecting up into a block. And because there's that ripple effect, there's that knock-on effect, even if you don't go through all of them, because they're related, we call it in psychological terms a gestalt. It's like a chain of events, where you work with things on that, a bit like if you had an expensive string of pearls, they're individually knotted. So if you break the strand, you'll only lose 1 or 2 pearls. If, however, you've got a cheaper set of pearls and you break the strand, all of the pearls fall off. It's a bit like that with a gestalt. So sometimes you just need to break and kind of the strand in 1 or 2 places, and then everything that feeds into that and feeds off of that will also then disappear. So that's what we're going for. So this is the one we did with the kind of Raising Your Money Vibration, and this is a result of what you sent in with those of you who completed the survey. So thank you for doing that. And so I'm just going to say some of the things just so you get a sense of where we're at. So things like anxious, because I was asking, you know, how are you feeling? How is this affecting you? And of course, you have the space to add anything else and you wanted to as well. So anxious, concerned, angry, upset, sad, my world is in turmoil, tired, A lot of people said tired of explaining, just tired of fighting, tired of seeing this happening again. Hate, frustration, helplessness, hopeless, feeling small, doing or saying the wrong thing, angry that you're watching, you actually don't know what to do to help, angry that you don't feel that you can help, angry that the rulers aren't helping those who should be in charge, stuck, unable to move forward, held back, overwhelming, intense, unbelievable, mind-boggling, the sense of frustration, impotence, seeing old patterns releasing. It's a long list. So hey Penny, good. We haven't started, we're just kind of running through you know, some of the things that people put into the survey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some access consciousness statements around these words. And what, so let me give you an example. For those who don't know Huna Access, we're going to go that right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. So I'm going to say, okay, anywhere and everywhere, for example, you are feeling anxious. Is it okay for you to release and resolve and destroy and uncreate all of this now? If it's okay for you to release the feelings of feeling anxious, or at least the layer that you're holding on to at the moment, you say yes now. I always say, look, if you are in a place where you've got people around you, and it'll be a bit weird for you to sit there going, yes, 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 just affirm it in your mind. However, if you are in a place and a space where you can say yes out loud, what you want to do is say those words so you can affirm it to the universe, is the way I put it. And of course, if you want to, you can type yes in the chat. You don't have to, but you know, I know sometimes people like to kick it off with a bit of a yes, so up to you. But say yes if you can, or at least affirm it in your mind, or nod to yourself at the same time. And then once you've said, you know, in my mind, I will say yes by proxy on your behalf. And then we run the clearing statement, which means I then say the right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. What that does, it has a neurological impact. I've done a couple of webinars and MP3 recordings explaining how it all works, so I won't go into it now. But what that does, the clearing statement works on a neurological and energetic, and I would say almost kind of, it's always a little bit of a psychic level, where it goes in and it clears those old beliefs out for you. And you don't have to kind of get into the story or understand why it's working, what's going on. For those of you who want to hear someone talk about it in detail, if you go to the testimonials page on my website, the very first person who ever did a Huna and Access Consciousness breakthrough session with me is a lovely guy called Mark Forster. His video is on my website where he talks to you about his experience of this. Andrew Mondia says, this is the powerful part. Cool, right. So here we go. Alrighty. Is it okay for you to release the thought and the feeling of feeling anxious, even kind of in a state of flux and confused? So is it okay for you to release that feeling of anxiety now? If it is, you say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyond. Anywhere and everywhere you feel concerned about what you're seeing going on and happening in the world, and you know it's time to release and resolve and let that go now. Is it okay for you to release and resolve this from your mind, from your body, from your spirit, from your soul? And if it is, you just say yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of you're angry, you're upset. You might even be feeling a sense of rage about what you have been experiencing going on around you, or what people in your ancestral and genealogical line have also experienced. So anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of anger, you feel that sense of rage, is it okay for you to release and resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that now? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of sadness, you feel that sense of hopelessness, you feel that sense of powerlessness, you feel that sense of being small, you feel that sense of standing on the sidelines, you're not sure how to help, what to do to help, even if you can help. So anywhere and everywhere you feel that sense of hopelessness, and you feel that sense of powerlessness, and where those feelings no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere, there is that sense that the people who should be helping, those who set the tone, those who have the power to step in and do something, anywhere and everywhere, it almost feels as though they are shirking their responsibility, or it might even appear that they are also stoking the fire. Anywhere and everywhere that energy no longer serves you, will you now release and resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. God, I can feel it now. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. I'm really seriously, when you start doing the Huna and stuff, it's very hot work. I'm so glad I don't get hot flushes anymore, because that would be a real nightmare. Right, so anywhere and everywhere you feel that you're stuck and you are unable to move forward, it's as though you're being held back. And not just being held back, but you also feel that sense of overwhelm. Anywhere and everywhere, that energy no longer serves you, either in this lifetime or even in previous lifetimes, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere, it's almost unbelievable and mind-boggling. You almost can't even believe what's going on. It's like, really? And that in and of itself can just stun you and put you into a state where you almost feel frozen. So anywhere and everywhere you feel the energy and the impact of that sense of disbelief, that sense of, it's almost unbelievable that it's really playing itself out in this way before our own eyes. Anywhere and everywhere you're feeling and stuck in the energy of that, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you are kind of getting that sense that you are not only seeing the patterns releasing, but you might even be living and reliving some of those patterns yourself, and running the patterns of your family, mum, dad, sisters, brothers, grandparents, uncles, aunts. So anywhere and everywhere you're running those old ancestral, genealogical or current life patterns, and those patterns no longer serve you in this lifetime, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you've been tired, and it's as though everything that's been going on has been draining your physical, spiritual, mental, emotional energy. Anywhere and everywhere that energy drain no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you kind of feel that sense where people are talking about their heart is hurting, and if you listen to them and you didn't know what they were talking about, it actually sounded like they had a physical problem. So anywhere and everywhere you have felt the impact of this. It has almost been as though something has struck you in the heart. Anywhere and everywhere that energy no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you're carrying those old ancestral issues by virtue of the family that you were born into, maybe by virtue of the country that you were born into, your race, your nationality, your gender, your sexuality. Anywhere and everywhere you carry those old ancestral issues and they no longer serve you in this lifetime, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you almost feel the physical weight and burden of those ancestral issues, as though they almost kind of metaphorically speaking hold you back. Anywhere and everywhere you're carrying those old ancestral burdens, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere you feel as though your voice is not heard, and that may be by virtue of being a woman, It may be by virtue of what you have been born into, or where you have been born, or the choices that you have decided to make with your life. So anywhere and everywhere you feel as though your voice is not heard, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere you feel that it is hard to move forwards. And it might be you stepping out of your comfort zone. It may be you stepping into your power. It may be as you stepping out as a woman. It may be as you stepping out as a Black person in a world which the way it demonstrates itself, it is rigged against you. So anywhere and everywhere there are problems and challenges with you stepping out and reclaiming, because I think you've always had it, your power. Anything and everything that feeds into that and feeds off of that where it no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere, this whole thing, it has been like those remnants and that dark cloud. So it's bringing a sense of sadness. It's bringing a sense of depression. It is bringing a sense where it's kind of sucking the joy out of your mood. So anywhere and everywhere, those thoughts, those feelings, those energies no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere, there's a sense of fear. And it might be related to fear in terms of where the world is heading, fear for your own safety, fear for your own sanity, fear for your own livelihood, and also fear for those that you care about whose lives are in danger because of the state of the world that we live in. And that could also be for the people, because I know some of you are related to people who live in war zones as well, for example. So anywhere and everywhere you are carrying that sense of fear, and the energy of that no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you feel as though there is a sense that you have been traumatized, maybe by what you've seen, by what you've heard, by what you've witnessed, by what you've been told, or with the ancestral or genealogical trauma energy that you carry. So anywhere and everywhere you have this sense that you have been traumatized, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate any of that energy that no longer serves you in this lifetime or even in previous lifetimes? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere there is that sense of almost overwhelming emotions, a sense of despair, that sense of helplessness, that sense of feeling disempowered. Anywhere and everywhere you carry the thoughts, the feelings, the energy, the judgment, and the limitation of that, and it no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere, it's gotten to the point where you almost can't take anymore. So on some level, you disconnect, and there is that sense of feeling numb. There is that sense of feeling immobilized. There is that sense of feeling frozen. There is that sense of not even knowing what to think or how to think or what to say or what to do. So anything and everything that those thoughts and those feelings feed into or feed off of, which no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you have judged yourself and made yourself feel wrong for what you are feeling, or what you have or have not been able to do. So anywhere and everywhere you've put that sense of judgment on yourself, and that no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere there's been that sense of, it really is Groundhog Day, where it's the repetitive ancestral trauma, the repetitive story. Thank you. Is that Eartha Kitt? It looks like I love a bit of history repeating itself, where history really is repeating itself. So anywhere and everywhere there is the energy of that. It almost feels as though you almost think, what the hell did my ancestors go through all of that for, to be having this same old BS happening again? It almost feels like that. You're like, what was the point? So anywhere and everywhere and really, you know, we have come a long way, even since 1954. So anywhere and everywhere you carry the energy of that, where it's almost as though some of this anger, some of this rage, and some of this sense of what the heck, I can't even do it anymore, the repetitiveness of it is also related in to the energy and the experiences of your ancestors. And these don't have to be your ancestors, these could be what you know of the ancestral and genealogical lines of just the world in general. So anywhere and everywhere it feels as though our ancestors and those in our genealogical line have gone through all of this before, and you might perceive that to be to no avail. Anywhere and everywhere you carry the energy of that sense of the repetitive ancestral traumas, and that no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 for POC, shorts, boys and beyond. And anywhere and everywhere there's been a sense of loss, and that could be directly the loss of life, the loss of your livelihood, the loss of your sense of liberty, the loss of your sense of freedom, the loss of your sense of safety and security in the world. So anywhere and everywhere there's been a sense of loss, and everything that feeds into that and feeds off of that, where that energy no longer serves you in this lifetime or in previous lifetimes, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyond. And anywhere and everywhere it feels as though we still live in a world which is locked into institutionalized racism, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyond. Anywhere and everywhere it might be at the forefront of your mind or in the back of your mind that things will never change. And that then feeds into that sense of feeling disheartened, feeling hopeless, feeling despondent. Anywhere and everywhere that energy no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you have that sense that being Black means that you have to work at least 3 times harder, if not more, just to make the same headway, or even still be behind the curve. Anywhere and everywhere that sense of injustice, that sense of unfairness, that sense of inequality no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere you feel as though the world is stacked against you. The cards are not in your favor. The deck has not been stacked to support you. Anywhere and everywhere those thoughts, those feelings, those ideas, those judgments, those limitations no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere there is still that racial superiority complex and the energy of white supremacy and institutionalized racism. So anywhere and everywhere you are tapped into the insidious nature of that, and that energy no longer serves you in this lifetime or in previous lifetimes, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod POC, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere you carry any of these thoughts, these feelings, that sense of deep sadness, that sense of suppression, that sense of being oppressed, and those feelings also don't even belong to you. Anywhere and everywhere you're carrying thoughts, feelings, ideas, judgments, and limitations that don't even belong to you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that and return it to sender with consciousness attached? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere, it feels as though this ancestral trauma, the history, the ancestry, the genealogy is frozen such that it almost feels impossible to even break it. Anywhere and everywhere, it feels as though it is frozen and stuck in time. And anywhere that sense of being frozen no longer serves you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere, you carry the energy, the inherited thoughts, the inherited beliefs of being copied, plagiarized, ripped off, used and abused. Anywhere and everywhere, the energy of that no longer serves you. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere, there is that sense of injustice, that sense of someone having power over you, that sense of someone else or something else, some structure, some paradigm controlling you, having power over you, which then leaves you feeling small and helpless and unable to move. Anywhere and everywhere, the energy of that no longer serves you. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay. The way that I'm going to put that one here, it might just be for someone. The kind of the way it sounds is that it's not my fault. Yes, but it's not my fault. So even if it's not your fault, anywhere and everywhere, you carry that sense of blame, you carry that sense of judgment, and you fight against it because it's really not your fault. You didn't do this, somebody else did it. Could be ancestors, could be somebody else. But anywhere and everywhere, it almost feels as though you've been taking the blame. It's not your fault. And just being stuck in that judgment energy has not allowed you to move forwards. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere, you carry that sense of hypervigilance and fear in your tissues and almost in the heart of your DNA. And that fear energy, that hypervigilance, no longer serves you. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Oh, that's so cool. Farhan says, by the way, I got so much success to share from the last group clearing session you did that I joined. I will message later with details. Message away, Farhan. That would be brilliant. That would be wonderful. And Andrew says, the top of my head is affected. Okay, so anywhere and everywhere, you or your ancestors were put in a position where their lives were in danger, and you still carry some of the remnants and the energy of that. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay, anything else before we do the Huna? Sorry, that's a rhetorical question. I'm talking to myself. Anything else? Okay, give me a very clear signal for yes. Perfectamundo. Okay, cool, relax. Give me a different clear signal for no. Cool. Thank you very much. Right, Is there anything else we need to do and clear with the access consciousness on this particular session? Yeah, okay. So is it the thing that I was thinking about? Yeah. Okay, cool. Alrighty. I was like, come on, let's look at the time. Let's go. All right. Okay, this is the way I'm going to put it. All right. So, any oaths, pacts, agreements, contracts, or even karmic records and agreements that you signed coming into this lifetime, which no longer serve the life you are choosing to live, anywhere and everywhere, those oaths, those pacts, those agreements, those contracts, those karmic agreements and records no longer serve you. For anything that has been completed, spent, done, can you revoke, recant, rescind, or mark it as completed and paid in full, and release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate those old oaths, pacts, agreements, and contracts where they no longer serve you? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 podpoc shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere where it is time to rewrite your Akashic records and update those files and records to support who you are now truly choosing to be, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 podpoc shorts, boys and beyonds. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else before we do the Huna? We're good. That's my signal for no. So I think we're like, okay, that's what I wanted you to do. We're cool. Thank you very much. Alrighty. So and those that won't serve or benefit our future 7 generations, absolutely. And the thing that you kind of, and can we also clear for us, our communities and the planet? Oh, go on then. All right. So for those in our communities, for those on the planet who are open to receiving this energy, can we now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of the negative energies that have been all pervading around that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 podpoc shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere the future generations are open to receiving this clearing energy, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate anything that's been stopping and blocking the forward motion and the permeation of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 podpoc shorts, boys and beyonds. Andrew, you're too funny. I love it. Oh, right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do a round of the Huna energy clearing. And the way the Huna energy clearing works is that I will just I will kind of just be, it will just sound like sounds to you, and you can just kind of be open to receiving the energy of that. Alrighty, I need water. Alrighty. Right. And there's nothing you need to do. You don't have to try and make anything happen. You just sit back and relax or have a little nap. If you're having a little nap, set the intention that your unconscious mind, your inner mind, and your higher self will know exactly what you need to do with this energy, such that you receive it in a way that's right, healthy, and ecological for you and for your greatest, highest good. And if it's energy that you don't really require or need, you can just allow it to dissipate around you. And that is the same to the people who will be receiving this on those ancestral and genealogical lines. Alrighty, here we go. Are you sure? Okay. And anywhere and everywhere, it doesn't feel safe to be yourself, and it doesn't feel safe to trust. Anywhere and everywhere, that sense of your safety, it's almost out of control and out of context, because you haven't yet realized the amount of level of protection that you just have got around you naturally, and also maybe not trusting your intuition and your own analytical senses that will keep you safe. It's almost like we've got an inbuilt kind of safety program in a way. So anywhere and everywhere, that sense of not being able to trust and that sense of being unsafe has been stopping and blocking your progress throughout life. Will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pod shorts, boys and beyonds. Okay. Okay, cool. So if you have some water handy, you might want to have some water. Also, you might want to maybe stamp your feet or just pat up and down your kind of chest, legs, just to kind of bring yourself back into the present moment. Alvahan says, thank you. A lovely bubble of awesome. I love that. Fabuloso. So Yeah, and if you got any feedback, comments, or whatever went on for you, Wan says you are love. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining. Natalie says thank you so much. You are most welcome. And yup, power, wow, wonderful, Andrew. That is brilliant. That is amazing. And somebody was asking, what would I recommend for clearing ancestral trauma? Lydia says that was great. Thank you so much. Natalie says my hands, my feet, and my upper back felt so hot. Cool. We had quite a lot of fire energy in there. It felt very dense to begin with. Edda, you're most welcome. Edda says thank you. So in terms of some of the things that I would recommend, and keep the feedback coming, I will cycle back and have a look. I love timeline therapy for going back and clearing the past. I love NLP for changing strategies and the way that you think. Past life regression is always fantastic if you get a sense that you're carrying information from past lives. Hypnosis to change old mental patterns and help you integrate those mental programs. Of course, Huna and Ho'oponopono and Access Consciousness, you've had a little taster of that today. The soul plans in terms of identifying the limiting beliefs and the things that keep you stuck. From stepping into your skills, your talents, and achieving your goals. So soul plan is good for that. The archetypal journey, if you're kind of wondering, okay, where am I and what's going on? And I do love the kind of constellation intersection points, because that's a really powerful one for changing the individual themselves, but it also has that wonderful knock-on effect to the people that they are kind of connected to and related to. So in answer to that question, I just thought I'd do a slide. Those are some of the things I would definitely recommend if you wanted to work more deeply on kind of clearing ancestral trauma. And for those of you who've got a bit more time, if you haven't got any more time, you can go. It's a recording. You'll get the recording. But you know, those of you, when I was doing the survey, said you wanted some tools and techniques and things that you could kind of take away and put into practice. Now, definitely use the Access Consciousness whenever you feel stuck. And if you get, you know, go to my website and get the clearing statement, or email me, I'll send it to you. I've told you how to construct those statements for yourself so that you can run your own clearing statements. That's the first thing I would say in terms of tools and things that you can take away. And we're just going to whiz through some of these mindset tips, and these are a couple of my favorites. Focus on what you want. It's where do you put your focus? Well, the thought flip, which I've used often in like things like the money breakthrough program and the raising your money vibration, because it's great for that. The one step closer and going meta. So focus on what you want. If you don't want to hit the brick wall, put your focus somewhere else. That's it in a nutshell, just for brevity. And also in terms of the way you speak to yourself, rather than saying, oh my God, I want to feel less stressed, your focus is still on stress. If I don't want to feel this angry, if I don't want to feel this hurt, if I don't want to feel this triggered, your thought is still on being angry, hurt, and triggered. What do you want to feel instead? Well, I want to feel more peaceful. I want to feel more calm. I want to feel more in control. That is where you'll put your focus. In terms of the mindset flip, over the coming days, notice your thoughts, notice your feelings. If the thought doesn't serve you, I'm so upset, great, doesn't serve me. If I were to flip that, it's like flipping a coin. I'm pretty sure I've got some here. So, not this, this. I don't want to feel this, this. You basically flip it like a coin. And those of you who have done the Magic and Gratitude program, where I sent you one of these are the gold sovereign, the silver sovereign, sorry. But you were given one of these as a gift when you joined the program. It's one of those. And actually, if you still have it, this might be a nice metaphor for this exercise. But if that's not what you want, flip it. If I don't want to feel stressed, what do I want instead? Calm, relax. If I don't want to feel triggered, what do I want instead? More in control. And you just flip the thought. And you basically, what you can say to yourself is not this, this, not this, this. The more you do it, eventually your mind gets anchored into that, and it will do the thought flip for you. That's a bit of a mouthful to say. So that's my second mindset tip. Next one is what I call one step closer. This is a journey. I feel that life is a journey that we don't. And I remember when I first watched the movie The Secret, I think it was Mike Dooley who said, be grateful and happy. You don't get everything you ask for all in one. Because I think a great big thing of dung landed in his living room where he wanted to go on an African safari or something like that. So oftentimes we're taking a step and we're taking a step and we're taking a step. So one of the things I'm going to suggest, even if you're feeling overwhelmed, it might be, look, I just need to go and lie down, because I'm a fan of napping and having a good rest and power naps and sleeping. However, if you kind of go, no, actually, I want to move forward. I want to do something. I have the energy and the mindset to do it. my suggestion, if you're feeling overwhelmed, is too much, just ask yourself, what one thing can I do either now, in this moment, or today, or this week, whatever your time scale is, to move myself one step closer to my outcome? And if you do that on a consistent enough basis, you will find that you make exponential progress. It might not feel like it at the time. Patience is a watchword. We talk about it a lot in the online membership group and in the Facebook group. But that one step closer is a really powerful way to do it as well. And if you really feel stuck, this is one, if you've done NLP, for example, you would know this as kind of meta positions or perceptual positions. Go meta. Take yourself above yourself, or even go another stage. Think of someone you admire and you're saying, what would so-and-so do in this situation? For example, oh, I've got goosebumps now. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to have to say it now. For example, what would Dr. Martin Luther King do? And then you just sit quietly. And it might be that you wait and something comes to you in this, oh God, apparently he would pray. And something might come to you in the moment, or it might be that you then go about your day and suddenly you get what I call that divine insight, divine inspiration. But just asking, what would so-and-so do? Insert the name, or go above yourself and take a step back. You know, if somebody says, I need to take a rain check, let's take 5. It's that, because when you take yourself out of the situation, out of the heat of it, you get a different perspective. So that's one of the things I would definitely recommend as well. So if you have any final questions, comments, feedback about anything we've covered on this webinar, on this recording, speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. So type it in. And while you're typing, I'll cycle back in a few minutes. If, you know, in terms of contact information, I'll say it and spell it for those of you who might just be listening to the audio. My email, it's the easiest way to get hold of me, is marilyn@transformationstm.com. Marilyn is MARILYN, trance, TRANCE, as in hypnotic transformations, F for Freddy, so FORMATIONS, TM as in trademark. So Marilyn@transformationstm.com. Main website, therapy website is www.transformationstm.com. The flexible working website, which I've then started to put together at the moment, is kind of on a temporary link, but it's flexibleworking.brizzy.site, BRIZY.SITE. So that's where you'll find, actually, that's where, if you want to read some of the articles, I've started to put the links to the articles there. I'm going to put some downloads, ebooks, etc., and fact sheets. And my blog is marilyndevonish.com, and Devonish is DEV for Victor, ON for November, ISH. Worst way to try and get hold of me is my phone. So I'm not even going to say it. That's why I've grayed it out, because like for now, my phone is switched off because we're doing a recording. So I'm either on the phone doing telephone coaching, or it's switched off because I'm doing Skype coaching, or I'm here in my online meeting room running webinars or doing global therapy sessions. So trying to ring, you're probably wasting your time. Easy to find me on social media. It's /Marilyn Devonish. Except for Instagram, which is the Neuro Success Coach, Neuro, Neuro, success, and Neuro Success is one word. So _neurosuccess_coach. So that's on Instagram, but Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. It's all /Marilyn Devonish. So I'm very easy to find. In terms of next steps, best way to keep tabs of what I'm doing, because I know social media algorithms are very weird. Easiest thing to do is sign up for my e-newsletter. You'll find that on the transformationstm.com website. There's a box on the top left-hand side, and that will drop you straight into MailChimp. I have got a new Huna subscription service that currently, while we're in this kind of lockdown pandemic thing, it starts at £7 per month. So you've got access to an archive of stuff, and I will be uploading new material as we go along as well. So you can either do it on a monthly basis. I think the annual, I've set it for £79 or something like that, or you can do lifetime access. So I'll email you all the link. It's a bit of a mouthful. And you can actually, the easiest way also, if you ever want to find out very quickly what's going on, if you go to my website, there's a red button that says what's new. Click that, a panel comes out from the right hand side, and you've got links to things. So if you want to kind of look at the Huna subscription, it's currently there. That's going to be the easiest way to find it, but I'll drop you all an email. If there's anything you wanted to talk about in more detail, when I've got a bit of time, you can book a free 20-minute online consultation. And that's www.bookme.name/Marilyn Devonish. And of course, follow on social media. So that's that. So I just want to say thank you for joining. Thank you so much to those of you who shared the link and invited other people as well. Let me go back and I'm going to have a look at this now. Oh gosh, I've got to scroll back quite far. Hold on and give me a moment. Okay, Daniela says thank you so much. Thank you, Daniela. Gita says thank you for joining me. Kakab, I hope I've said that right. Thank you for joining. Penny says, oh my God, I felt that all over, tingling, pressures and expansions, heart and root, can't even describe it all. And that's kind of interesting. I was going to say we, but you know what I mean. Did quite a lot of work. If you go back and watch the video, I don't know where my hands were actually. They might have been here, so they're out of shot. Yeah, they probably were down here. But there's a thing that you do where you're kind of pulling the energy out, and we probably did 3 or 4 rounds of that, whereas normally I'll only do 1. But it was really around the throat and the heart area, because those really kind of felt very dense and very blocked. I love that. Veda says, thank you, Marilyn. I'm so grateful for all you do. Fabulous. Gita says, love and blessings. Awesome session. Farhan says, I'm so blissed out all over. Dual Views was writing about it, Persing opposite views. So grateful to you. You're most welcome. Noreen says, thank you, Marilyn. You are most welcome. Andrew says, love you and much thanks. Wonderful. Patricia says, I've been praying a lot. Thank you. Well, I think Dr. Martin Luther King is kind of with you on that one. Farhan says, can we gift you appreciation donations? That was so funny. So we did a Huna thing. I did a free Huna thing for people on my e-newsletter list to cut back. What was that, Farhan? About 2 months ago, somebody was saying they were about money and cash, and they said, what about donations? So I said, oh yeah, you could do that. Now I was talking about them. And then I think it was Amana said, well, where's the link? I went, link for what? She went, link for your donations. I'd never done donations before in my entire life. And it was really sweet. Loads of people sent money via PayPal. So Farhan, let me just see if I can find it. If I'm quick. But it was very cool. That was like, why did I ever think of doing that? Now, which one? I think it might have just been a blank one. You can give this a go and see if it works. I think this is the one that I used. Hold on. Where it was just blank. And then I think what you do is you put your own amount in. Give this one a go. I'm going to put it into the chat. I think that's it. So yeah, I think that'll work. And what you do is it says 0.00 and you just put a number in, add some zero. When I say add some zeros, I mean to move it over to the pound bit. But that's the link. That's lovely. Thank you, Farhan, for mentioning that. I wasn't thinking of that. Maybe should I add that in as a regular thing? Maybe I will. Hold on. Here we go. Do you ever work on the effects of slavery on family relationships, especially when slaves did not have a choice? Yeah, often, like when you do something like, past life regression, for example, you're often actually meeting the ancestors there and having dialogue with them. It's fascinating. So yes, absolutely. And that's where people sometimes will see things, got no idea if it's true, but then they go back and they're able to validate it. So it is fascinating. Genius says, thank you for inviting me, Gita. This is the second time I'm experiencing your power and energy. Oh, you did a well-being session for my colleagues. Oh, yes. So, yeah, I did for a local, I won't say who you were, but yeah, it was an organization. So I went in and did a lunchtime session about flexible working and all that sort of stuff, and dealing with lockdown. So I'm really lovely to see you here. Thank you for coming. That's lovely. Wonderful. Merci beaucoup to you too, Natalie. Penny says, oh, and felt major throat too. Absolutely. The throat energy, there was a lot going on there. It was pretty much did a little chakra thing at the end, because I'm like, man, because normally there's something that stands out, but it was the throat and the heart that really stood out. But it felt like all of the energy centers were blocked. And there's this thing that I do where I do that. If you can see my, yes, you can see my hands, and I do that, and the group are in the middle between my hands. And what I do is I'm sending the energy back and forth, and when I can feel it doing a bounce back and forth, I know I'm done. I thought I got to the end, I did that, and I couldn't feel anything. I could send the energy, but it wasn't getting through. It was that dense. So then did another round of that. So yeah, it was really interesting. And throat felt like it was going to explode for a moment. Laugh out loud. Penny, I hope it's feeling better now. Lydia says, thank you so much. What you do is really amazing. Feel free to tell all your friends. Farhan says, yes, it was about 2 months ago. Andrew says that was the hop-in event. You are correct. It was the hop-in event. Farhan says, perfect. Yes, put that in. If you ever do a free event, you never know what will happen. Yeah, you're right. I think I started adding it to the very bottom of my e-newsletter. Claire says, thank you, you're most welcome. Lydia says, I finally joined your photo reading webinar course last week. I'm so happy. Woohoo. I just love it. You know, I was saying to someone yesterday that I had to convince Learning Strategies to let me put it online. And now Paul Sheely has just announced, I think 3 years after I did mine, that he's also going to maybe do a bit online, which I think is very cool. But it made me laugh that the creator of photo reading is catching up, but it is what it is. But I just knew you could translate that wonderful energy and do the whole certification online. So thank you for joining. Farhan says, can't see any video. Wondering about clearing for subconsciously not wanting to heal because healing is so enjoyable. Yeah, you would need a new strategy for that. So, you know, when I was talking about maybe the NLP and the hypnotherapy, you would use that to put something in its place. You remember, if you were here earlier when I was talking about clearing out the weeds, taking one thing out, putting one thing in, if you're trying to take that away and your mind and body believes that it's called secondary gain, and you don't give it anything else in return, it will just hold on. So you've got to find a more compelling alternative. And maybe it's the joys of vitality so that you're not always in the healing cycle, in a nutshell. There's a longer conversation, but that's it. Farhan says, Pioneer Marilyn. Sometimes it is that way, Farhan. What can I say? Let's see. What about clearing? Cool, right. Just done that one. Here, right. I think we are good in terms of the chat, etc. Hold on, my lights come on again for the Q&A. Of course I can. So they're saying, can you send the donation link as? Yes, I can send the donation link as an email. So oh, by the way, so with the recording of this, when the recording is rendered, which will be tomorrow, I press a button and it sends you all an email to let you know the recording is now available for replay. So you'll get a notification of that. And what I'll also do tomorrow, what am I doing tomorrow? I'm interviewing the American celebrity matchmaker tomorrow, Carmelia Ray. Ooh, I'm looking forward to that one. So she's a big time celebrity matchmaker. So we're doing it, and her thing is helping successful entrepreneurs and business owners find love both offline and online. So I'm interviewing her tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. UK time, if you're watching this in real time, and we're going to do a combination of the love, matchmaking and photo reading. That's all I'm going to say for now. So that's going to be interesting. But what I will do is I will send you the donations link once I've prepped for the interview. I was like, how did I get onto that? Oh, yeah, I was thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow. So once I've done the prep for the webinar and the interview and done my coaching clients, I'll send you a link for the donations link. That's cool. Right. Okay, my other lights on again. Sounds really interesting. And Penny says, yes, my throat was not uncomfortable. It was just weird. Perfect. And Farhan said, and yes, the pay link works. Perfect. Well, thank you for joining, for participating, for all of your wonderful questions, queries, the feedback, etc. Lydia says, I think I'll join your monthly Huna subscription this month. Fabuloso. And even when I do change the pricing, because I checked with the company, because I thought I don't want to mess people about. So if you join and it's £7 a month and then I change it to 37 or 47 or 97 pounds a month, you will always just pay £7, which I actually think is really cool. Because I got in touch with a company that says, well, I'm going to do an intro price while we're in lockdown, but that's not going to be the price I'm always going to charge. And so I said, how do I get people to stay on that one? And he said, oh no, it's automatic. No matter what price they join at, that's the price you always stay at. So whether that's the monthly or the annual, it will always be the price that you join at, even when I do increase the prices. So that's cool. Penny says, thank you so much. You're most welcome. Well, thank you all. And if you know anyone, if you meet anyone who could benefit from my services and what I do, either in the therapeutic world or in the corporate world, because I definitely want to do more corporate training, and all of the corporate training can be done online. This is the platform that I use to do my corporate trainings, or of course in person when we're not in lockdown. Please feel free to recommend me, as long as they're fabulous people. You don't need to ask me. I'm happy just to receive an email saying, hey Marilyn, I'd like to introduce you to so and so. That is very cool. And you know, feel free to send them my link, my website, my email, my details. Cool. Thank you so much. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your evening for those of you in the UK, or morning or afternoon for those of you who are in different parts of the world. Yeah, Patricia, you are most welcome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's see. Recording. Cool. Right. So there we go. So I'll stop the recording. It will then take a few hours to render, by which time I should be in bed, but you'll get the recording in the morning if you ever want to go back and listen to any of this stuff. And what you can do with the Huna, you can just sit and think about what's up for you in that moment, and set the intention that you clear whatever that is. And with the Access Consciousness, you can almost just be listening to the clearing statements and putting your own intention or words into that as well. So, you know, you can use this. And yes, you can actually share this recording with people as well once it's rendered. Fabulous. Well, thank you all for joining me. I will catch you later. And thank you for staying the distance for what turned out to be quite an epic call. But hey, it is what it is. Brilliant. Thanks. Bye.